Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share this video, especially if you like college football as much as I do. I'm going to do LSU's football schedule today. LSU actually brings back, excuse me, most of their offense and defense. Their whole offensive line is coming back. My concerns for LSU are two things. Jaden Daniels and that offensive line. The offensive line is my main concern. Now, Jaden Daniels, look back at his film. He actually did pretty good throwing the football. And you also got to understand, as a quarterback, it doesn't matter how good you are. If your offensive line doesn't block good for you, it's hard for you to throw really good. Unless you're an athlete like Jaden Daniels, you can run everywhere. But we'll see. Week 1, you start with Florida State. And it's in Orlando. It's not in your backyard. Not backyard like last year, but you know what I mean. It's not in your home state. It's basically a home game for Florida State. Florida State is coming off a 6-game winning streak. Now, I know Florida State has not won more than 6 games in a row in a long time. The closest they've done to that was in 2016 when they finished off with beating Michigan in the Orange Bowl. And then they had lost a lot of games after that, and, you know, they went through what they went through. My concern with LSU is not the muffed punts. That's easily fixable. I think Coach Kelly will have his team much more disciplined, ready to go, more than they were in last year's game. Because they actually got better throughout the year, like I said they would. My concern is that offensive line. You gave up 42 sacks throughout the whole year. It should have been more. Luckily, Jaden Daniels is a really good athlete and could evade those sacks. You know who didn't get sacked a lot last year? Jordan Travis. Now, granted, he can run, but at the same time, even when he was able to make a lot of throws, you know why he was able to make good throws and better decisions with the football? Because Florida State's offensive line gave him plenty of time to make throws for the most part. I think the most pressure he was under was probably this LSU team and Clemson. Really good teams. So Florida State's bringing back most of their offensive line. So I think they'll be able to protect him good enough in this game. I don't think LSU can protect Jaden Daniels good enough in this game. Because Florida State was a team at one point that had a horrible offensive line. It took really, you can start seeing the growth in Norvell's second year when they went 5-7. But Jordan still had to run quite a good bit. It wasn't until this past year, year 3 with Norvell, where that offensive line played really good. I don't think LSU is going to have that offensive line fixed. I don't think LSU's defense can bottle up Jordan Travis and keep him from throwing, doing both of those at one time the whole game. This game should be lower scoring, but I don't think it's going to be as close because Florida State is going to play a lot cleaner. They have most of the same team. And on top of that, they went and got more players out of the transfer portal. So while LSU has their same team, and yes, they probably have more talent than Florida State, this was the talent difference last year. Florida State went and got more and kept their team, and now it's more even. So with that being said, and because LSU's offensive line doesn't block very well, I'm picking Florida State because they'll win the battle up front. I think they win this game by 10 points or more. I think it'll get away from LSU. Because again, Jaden Daniels can throw, but if you can't protect him, what good does it do? Your offense won't be able to function as good. So that's my opinion on that. I think Florida State wins this game. I think it could get a little ugly. I don't think talent's going to be as much of an issue as it was last year. That's why LSU came back like they did outside of that. And they couldn't block Florida State last year with a undersized defensive line. They went and got 2 more guys that are going to start that are 300 pounds or more. So what do you think should happen this time? There you go. So they start their season off with a loss. Their next 3 games, they win those games. Grambling State, Mississippi State, and they're home against Arkansas. I don't think that Arkansas game is going to be as quite as close. Should be cleaner. I think it should be a good game, but because this game's in Death Valley, I have Arkansas losing. Now you're 3-1 if you're LSU. They go to Ole Miss. Last year, they upset Ole Miss at home. I think they go to Ole Miss. I think they lose this game by 4 points or less. 31-27, something like that. Ole Miss is going to have more of a passing game this year. I'm expecting that with Lane Kiffin there. They'll be a more balanced offense. So they lose that game. The next 3 games, they have Missouri, Auburn, and Army all at home. They should win all those games. The hardest game out of those games that they could lose is Auburn because Hugh Freeze is a really good coach. They already had good players. Once a team has good players and then they have a coach that knows what he's doing and has a history of winning like Hugh Freeze does, that's a dangerous game. But because it's at LSU, I think they win. And then they have to go to Alabama. Alabama is not, they're not going to get lucky with Alabama again. Alabama is going to be a more complete team. While Bryce Young is gone, that defense is going to be a lot better because of Kevin Steele. The offense around Tyler Buckner, who I think is going to be the quarterback, is going to be a lot better. I think Bama wins this game in a really good game, 8 points or less. I don't think it'll be a blowout. LSU's going to fight hard. Then you guys have Florida at home. You should win this game. I think you're a far better team than Florida. While it's a rivalry game, it's a competitive game. You are coming off an Alabama game where you're going to be beat up a lot. And then Florida will go to you. But you're still going through Alabama. While Florida's not as good as Alabama right now, I do think you're still good enough, more than good enough to beat Florida, even on a game where you're not as good. Then you have to host Georgia State and Texas A&M. You win both of those games. I think the Texas A&M game should be pretty good, but because it's in Death Valley, you win this game. Therefore, you finish 9-3. I don't think you make it to the SEC championship. I think Bama is back this year. Again, my concern with LSU is that offensive line. And if your team just had a bad offensive line, it usually does not get fixed the next year. So with that being said, I think you won't be able to block Florida State. You'll struggle with Ole Miss because it's at Ole Miss. And the Alabama game is over there. And Alabama has better athletes than Florida State does as a team right now. It's not that big of a difference. Florida State's been doing really good with getting players. But it's at Alabama. You guys go 9-3. It could be 8-4. Again, that Auburn game is very competitive all the time, so you could lose that game. And the Texas A&M game, you could lose that one because A&M has a bunch of talent. And they beat y'all last year without any offensive production throughout the whole year. They were 4-7 and they beat you. So I do think LSU finishes 9-3, though. That's just my opinion.